Well, hello everybody. Mr. Reeves back with you yet one more time. And we are moving into Module 5, Proportions and Percents. And today we're going to be working on the Are You Ready assignment, which is on page 138 in your textbook, doing some review and practice with percentages. All right. So let's go ahead and start right here at the first part of this assignment where they are asking us to convert from a percent to a decimal. All right, so let's take a quick look and remind ourselves of what a percent is. All right, so a percent or a percentage is a ratio. You remember a ratio is simply a comparison of any two numbers, A over B, right? Remember that was our ratio A over B, where A and B are integers and B is not equal to 0, all right? So a percent is a ratio like that where the denominator it's the same number every time, is 100. So a percentage is a ratio where the denominator is 100. All right, and you remember when we have a decimal, all right, remember we have places after the decimal. Do you remember this is the tenths place, right? And this is the hundredths place. So if we have a decimal to go to over a denominator of 100, we're going to go out 2 places. Of course, this right here would be the ones place, right? So some of these are actually going to have a number here. So if I take a look at 22%, that is going to be 22 over 100. Now I know the directions say to write it as a decimal. I'm going to first write these as fractions, or I'm going to write them as ratios. Okay, so 75% would be 75 over 100. 6% would be 6 over 100. And then 189% would be 189 over 100. Of course, this one is an improper fraction because 189 is bigger than 100. All right. So now you got to think back to earlier in the year when we converted from fractions to decimals, right? Now you can take any number, and because these ones are over 100, these are easier. Remember, you can convert any fraction to a decimal simply by dividing the numerator by the denominator. But since these are over 100, they're easy to do with decimals because decimals are all powers of 10. So 22 over 100 is 22 hundredths. All right, so it's 0.22. 22 hundredths, right? It goes 2 places. 75 hundredths is going to be 0.75. 75 hundredths. All right, now we got to be careful on this one. This is not 60%. If it were 60%, here I'm going to write it in a different color so we don't get confused. 60% would be 0.60, right? But it's 6%. It's 6%. So it's 6 over 100. So I have to go 2 places over, right? 6 over 100, not 60 over 100. This is 60 over 100. This is 6 over 100. 0.06. 6 100ths. Again, if I had just put 0.6 like this, again, let me use a different color. If I put 0.6, that would be 6 over 10, right? If I put 0.60, that would be 60 over 100. We did not want that one, okay? We did not want that one. We wanted 6 over 100. So if you have a single digit, you're going to have a 0 there, all right? So if you have a single digit percentage, put that 0 in to make sure you're not getting tenths instead of hundredths or too big of a value. Now this one is a little more tricky. It's 189%. All right, now if you look up here at the example here, you'll see they had one like that. So they took 147% and they wrote it as 100% plus 47%. And 100% would be 1 or 1.0, right? 47% would be 47 over 100, and we get 1.47. So if we did it that way that they did it, we would rewrite it as 100 over 100, right? Plus 89 over 100. And again, 100 over 100, that's 1. 89 over 100 is 0.89. And when we add those together, we get 1.89. All right? Now, if you're going, wow, that seems really complicated, couldn't I just have put the decimal right in there? Yes. You'll notice on all of these, when you are converting from a percent to a decimal, it simply moves the decimal 2 places to the left, because that's what dividing by 100 does. It moves the decimal 2 places to the left. Remember, dividing by 10 moves it 1 place. Dividing by 100 moves it 2 places. So, to summarize, if your percentage is less than 100%, then that number there is going to be a 0, right? If your percentage is between 100 and 200, that would be a 1. If this were 289%, right, then that number would be 2.89, right? If it were 389%, it'd be 3.89. All right? So just remember that a percentage is a ratio where the denominator is 100. So you can write the percent as a ratio and then convert that ratio to a decimal. Or if you prefer, you may simply move the decimal 2 places to the left, because that is what happens when you divide by 100. Okay, so that's how you do the top part of that Are You Ready assignment. All right, let's go to the next part now, where they're asking us to go the opposite direction. Now they want us to write each decimal. They want us to write each decimal as a percent. Okay. Well, again, 0.59. All right, this is the tenths place. This is the hundredths place. Is going to be 59 over 100. Right? 0.98 is going to be 98 over 100. 0.02 is going to be 2 over 100. Again, because that's a 0, we know that we only have 2. We don't have 20. And 1.33 is going to be 133 over 100, right? So do you see how we're just going the opposite direction, but that middle step is the same. We are putting it over 100. So what is 59 over 100? It is simply 59%. This one is 98%. This one is 2%. Be careful, it's not 20%. It's 2%. This is 2 over 100. And this one right here is going to be 133%. Again, because we have that 1 in front of the decimal, that tells us we have more than 100%. All right, does that make sense? Hopefully that process is fairly straightforward for you. It is something that you should have done before. This should be review. Okay, and finally now the last part, where we are finding the percentage of each number. All right, so just a reminder, when you see this word of, you should think multiplication. All right? When you see the word of, you should think multiplication, right? So if I said, what is 1/2 of 8? Well, the answer is 4, right? 1/2 of 8 is 4. Well, I could get that by multiplying 1/2 times 8, and I would get 8 divided by 2, which is 4. So of tells us we're going to multiply. So we want to find 50% of 64, 7% of 30, and so on. All right, so just a reminder. All right, 50% we just said was 50 over 100, right? 7%, 7 over 100. 15% would be 15 over 100. 32% would be 32 over 100. I'm going to just keep writing these out here. Okay, so I'm rewriting them as ratios. And then of tells me I'm going to multiply. So I'm going to be multiplying on all of these. Okay, and then I'm going to multiply by 64. In this case, I'm going to multiply by 30. Now, because the first one's written as a fraction, I'm going to go ahead and write the second one as a fraction. Whoops, not 62 over 100, excuse me. That would be if it were 62%, but it's not 62%, it is simply 62. Right, gosh, goodness gracious here. Let's try this again. This should be 32 over 100 times, sorry about that, 62 over 1, 4 over 1, and 1,000 over 1. All right, so this is what we would end up with if we were going to multiply them as fractions, right? Now you also can multiply them as a decimal, or I could do 0.50 times 64, right? I can write this as a decimal. There it is as a fraction. This one right here, I could do 0. Now be careful, it's 7%, so it's not 0.7. That would be 70%, right? We don't want 70%, we want 7%. So this would be 0.07 times 30, okay? This one would be 0.15 times 160, all right? And you get the idea, right? 0.32 times 62. Now again, this is 120%, so that would be 1.20, because when it's over 100%, that part there is going to be in front of the decimal, times 4. And finally, this last one would be, again, it's 6%. Be careful, not 60%. 0.06. When you have a single digit percent, that other number is going to be a 0. Sorry, I'm struggling with my writing this morning. 0.06 times 1,000. All right, and at this point, I'm going to say it's all right if you want to use a calculator. All right, the point here that we want to make sure that we know how to do is we know how to set these up. Of course, I would really hope that you could do these without a calculator if you needed to. Okay, and I'm sure that you can, but I'm going to say go ahead at this point and use a calculator if you want to. So this one right here, I'm going to do 0.50. There's my 50% of tells me to multiply times 64. Now this one I really should have known because 50% is half, right? You guys know that 50% is half. So half of 64 is 32. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and write my answers in black here. So this one is 32. All right, then my next one is going to be 7%, 0.07. Right, then I'm going to do that times 30. Okay, and in that one I get 2.1. And by the way, it's always good to think, do my answers make sense? All right, so 50% is half. Half of 64 is 32. 7% is a small amount, right? It is less than 10%. 10% of 30 would be 3, so 7% has to be less than that, so that would make sense. All right, this one over here, 15%, right? So I'm going to do 0.15. That's what 15% is. And then I'm going to go times 160. Okay, and when I do that one, I get 24. Okay, 24. Okay, and you see how that would work, right? This one, 32%, I would do 0.32 times 62. Now, just real quick on this one, 120%, that's more than 1. So I should know ahead of time that the answer that I get for number 13, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. The answer that I get for number 13 should be bigger than 4 because I'm doing 120%. So I'm going to do 1.20, right? 120% of 4 is going to be bigger than 4. It's 100% of 4 plus 20% of 4. and the answer that I get is 4.8. So I just wanted to remind you, if you're multiplying by a percentage bigger than 100, then the answer you get should be bigger than what you started with. All right? So that is just a quick review that they wanted us to do of percents and decimals. Again, we are moving into Module 5, proportions and percent. We had been talking about equivalent ratios, proportional relationships, and now we're going to be working with percentages. All right, so I hope this helped. Until next time, see you later.